Welcome, friends, to Know Before You Go for Sunday of the 6th week in Ordinary Time. I'm Father Andrew Carl Wisdom, Vicar for Mission Advancement. You know, friends, we have this Sunday that familiar but no less countercultural gospel narrative of Jesus' Sermon on the Plain. Similar to St. Matthew's Sermon on the Mount, St. Luke presents Jesus' Beatitudes about the poor and the hungry, those who grieve, those who are persecuted. Jesus directly and succinctly warns against indifference in the face of suffering. This brings woes on all who call themselves Christian, but turn away those in clear need. The prophet Jeremiah, we see this weekend, doubles down on that point in Sunday's first reading, reminding us that turning away from the needy turns us away from God Himself. The prophet uses two poignant images, a barren bush and a tree of life, as metaphors for the state of our spiritual lives. The psalmist builds on that theme. Friends, these readings highlight how we Christians are to see and think and act differently in the world. Following my recent return to River Forest after my assignment in Denver, Bob Dixon, my lay colleague in Mission Advancement, reminded me of a humorous family memory that I had once shared with him. Before Christmas one year, my father summoned his 10 children to the kitchen table, and he added, "Bring pen and paper." I'll never forget his first words to us. "Who the hell do you think you are?" And then he said it again, in case there was any doubt that he did not have our full attention. "Who the hell do you think you are?" And we were just about as stunned as you probably are right now. What was my father doing? Dad was trying to remind us of our family's values. He felt we needed that reminding. At one point he said, "Write this down. In this family, we will each remember we are a community. You cannot live as an individual in a community. Write this down. In this family, you will not act entitled. You will be grateful and thankful for all that you have, and it will be demonstrated in your actions and attitudes. Write this down," he said for a third time. "In this family, you are not here to be served, but to serve this community. And from now on, you won't be asked twice to do what you should have done on your own the first time." And so on. Dad was reminding his growing gang of self-important preteens, teenagers, and young adults that we are a community of many, not one. He reminded us of the values our community, our family, lived by. Jesus does the same in today's gospel. He points out to the gathered crowd and to us that we are a community, one family, collectively, children of God, brothers and sisters in His name. He made it clear in subsequent teachings that this is a spiritual bond even more sacred than blood relation. Jesus states in clear terms our values as a Christian family. And like my father, he reminds us that Christians, by our very name, cannot live as so much of the rest of the world does, as simply individuals in a community, entitled with what we can get our hands on whenever we want it, whatever we want, regardless of who or what it affects. Jeremiah describes this sin in the first reading about the cursed man trusting only in himself, seeking his strength in flesh. Now we know by flesh that Paul is in Jeremiah and the Old Testament are always talking about really the world. And this turns the cursed one, us, when we're trusting in human things and not God, this turns our hearts away from the Lord, leaving us empty as a barren bush and without the blessed fullness of an evergreen, always fruit-bearing, drought-resistant tree planted and rooted in the running waters of the fountain of God. As the psalmist adds, such a blessed one's leaves never fade. All they do prospers. It's our choice to choose spiritual lives dried up like a barren bush, or to embrace spiritually full lives like a fruitful tree whose leaves never fade, no matter the heat of the moment, no matter the outside distress all around us. Friends, we are not here to serve ourselves, to bear fruit only for ourselves. That would only curse us to emptiness. We are here to bear fruit in serving others, especially those who are in some fashion poor or hungry, grieving, or bullied or hated. They are Christ among us. When our hearts turn toward them, they are turned toward the Lord. And that can only bring us blessing. Now, does Jesus have something against those who are in some manner rich or filled up or who laugh? Or those who are well spoken of? I hope not. Really, it's only when those desirable and good things in themselves are at the expense of sharing with others. That's the issue. When we don't share, when filling only our own hunger or taking care of only our own needs, when we are never moved to tears or grief when we encounter suffering in others or on the TV set or through our cell phone or read it in the papers, when we fail to risk putting our popularity or our reputation at risk, when we see a clear wrong or injustice right before us, then woe is us, this friar included. Working among missionaries in India in the 80s, I once heard Mother Teresa speak in person about why there is still so much worldwide poverty. Her simple answer: those who have do not share with those who do not. And in the West especially, the greatest poverty is spiritual. Look to help the spiritually poor when you return home, she told us gathered missionaries. As with any authentic preaching, Jesus comforts the afflicted and afflicts the comfortable. Blessed are you, we who are poor spiritually, emotionally, and materially. You are not forgotten. You are my first concern, our Lord assures them. And depending on the day, hour, or situation of our lives, all of us need to hear the uncomfortable "woe is you" challenge, as well as the comforting "blessed are you" reassurance. God says, I have not forgotten you. And he challenges us not to forget each other as well. Guess where God's promise of not forgetting those in any kind of need is fulfilled? Yes, in you and in me. I'm reminded of another thing my father used to say when he would hear someone wonder out loud what God would say to us, what his first words would be to us when we die. Dad would answer, I think God's going to ask me, who's here because of you? Who's here because of you? This is the Christian instinct. Not me, but we. Not one, but many. It's the foundational attitude found in the Beatitudes. Neglecting it brings woe upon ourselves. Living it, on the other hand, brings unimaginable blessings. The greatest of which is delight in knowing who the heck you really are. God bless you.